Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Midnight Requiem. Today we're going to be talking about Robert the Doll. Now, I know you've heard of Annabelle the Doll, seen the movies, and watched all the little biographies about her, but today we're going to have the story of Eugene Otto and his enchanted doll, Robert. It's fair to say that Key West, Florida is well known for being haunted. There are many stories surrounding Key West and the wider state, but one of the most famous is Robert the Doll, Eugene Otto, and the elements of Bohemian voodoo said to link the two together. Although Robert seems to be nothing but a rather careworn doll dressed in a sailor suit, holding a toy dog covered in small marks that seem to appear a little too much like scars, with small beady eyes and a smirk on his face, many will agree that he is directly responsible for a veritable bounty of problems. Robert has over the years been accused of causing car accidents, relationship breakdowns, divorces, deaths, disease, and much, much more. You may wonder where Robert the Doll came from. Although Robert's origins are disputed, as this is one of those stories that gets passed around from family member to family member within the state, it's generally thought that Robert was given to Otto as a present from his grandfather following a trip to Germany. After some investigation by the Fort West Martello Museum, where Robert resides today, it's now thought that the doll was never actually intended to be a doll. It's thought to be made by Steph, and perhaps to have manufactured as part of a clown or jester display. That outfit, oh my God, it's thought to be Otto's own. And if you're wondering where Otto got his name from, Eugene, that's right. Eugene's full name is Robert Eugene Otto. And soon the doll ended up with the name Robert, while Otto was simply referred to by his middle name. The reason why Otto decided to be called by his middle name is because he stated to his mother that he is no longer Robert, the doll is, and that he wants to be called Otto. Another story about Robert the haunted doll and his origins describes the Otto family mistreatment of their servants and maids. The family lived in a large mansion that still stands today. It stands on the corner of Simonton and Eaton. The size of the house meant that the family needed quote-unquote help. One maid was apparently caught using voodoo and was quickly fired, but before she left, she gave Robert to Eugene. But Robert was cursed. She used some of the voodoo that she'd been fired for on the doll to bring fear and discomfort to the family. Another story goes like this. One of the maids was having a relationship with Robert's father, and when their daughter passed away, she used the doll to put the little girl's spirit into. In the beginning, Robert was the haunted doll and well known for being a little spooky, but in the beginning, things seemed to be a little bit more innocent, like any other childhood friendship between a boy and his toy. Eugene took Robert everywhere he went, and even though Robert the doll was probably a little bit large and unwieldy for a boy of his age, Eugene was thought to be around 8 when given Robert, and Robert stands at around 3 feet tall. He was never seen without his beady-eyed companion in tow. Eugene was often heard whispering to Robert, which was entirely normal. It was only when a deep voice was heard answering back to Eugene that things started to get a little bit strange. One day the mother was walking past Robert's door and she heard him talking to Robert the doll. He was politely asking him if he wanted tea or if he wanted to play, and the mother heard a man's voice coming from her little boy's room. But when she opened the door, all she saw was her son and Robert the doll, and she just stared at them, quickly closed the door, and walked away. I don't know. I probably would have thrown some holy water on my child and the doll if I seen something like that. Robert the doll story gets stranger and stranger as the years go on. Robert was said to have somewhat of a hold over Eugene, and loud, violent commotions could be heard coming from Eugene's bedroom on almost a nightly basis. Furniture could be often found overturned, toys of Eugene's were often found ripped apart, and when the Otto family entered Eugene's room, he was found huddled on his bed, petrified. When asked what happened, he would simply say, "Robert did it." Stories of Robert the Doll moving meant that he was quickly banished to the attic. Servants arrived and promptly got their jobs in quick succession. They quit their jobs quickly, and also claimed that the aunt that banished Robert to the attic died the same night that he was put there. It was said that she was pushed down the stairs by mysterious hands. Despite his banishment, the Otto family were said to hear Robert the Doll moving frequently around the upstairs portion of the house, with his footsteps said to echo throughout areas of the property that were completely empty. He was even said to giggle in the middle of the night. Despite all this, and despite his obvious fear of Robert as a child, Eugene kept Robert as he grew up and into adulthood. He worked as an artist and later married and kept Eugene propped up in a window of his house. School children and almost anyone walking past the property would say that they often saw the doll disappear from sight before reappearing again before their eyes. Many people avoided the house entirely so that they could avoid Robert. Annette, Eugene's wife, was said to detest Robert and supposedly banish him back to the attic. Naturally, he didn't take particularly kindly to this and saw Robert the haunted doll once more place demands on Eugene, requesting the turret room of the house because he wanted a room with a view. Gene spent all of his time in the turret room with Robert, painting and talking to his doll until his death in 1974. The story of Robert Eugene Otto doesn't end with death. The Robert the Doll story continues well past Eugene's death, and the legend continues even to this day. The woman who bought Eugene's house, Myrtle Roter, was Robert's caretaker following the sale of the house. Roter corroborated many of Eugene's stories and often found Robert in an entirely different place to where she had left him. Visitors to her new home didn't like Robert and found that he'd appear and disappear at will. She and her visitors often claimed that already creepy expression on Robert's face appeared to change when anyone discussed Eugene in a negative way. So until death, this doll was always by Robert's side, and after death, he still didn't want to hear any negativity about his owner. In 1994, Myrtle donated Robert to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, where he still resides today. You'd be forgiven for thinking that perhaps being locked inside of a glass case would mean that Robert's antics were well and truly over, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Robert's big move simply meant that the legend grew stronger and he was exposed to more and more people. Today, he even has his own social media accounts, and a Robert replica doll is sold. If you're willing to believe anything about voodoo, perhaps with the increased exposure of Robert, plus replicas of him being sold, the increased bad luck of visitors to the museum is simply due to the curse of being spread further and further apart. Staff at the museum claim that Robert has been found in different positions within his case, that footsteps have been heard around the museum at night with no apparent explanation for the noise, and that Robert's expression has been known to change in a very neutral to nasty in the blink of an eye. Visitors to the museum are given advice on how to approach Robert, to speak to him in a polite way, to ask permission to photograph him, and to treat him with respect. The walls of Robert's display are littered with letters from visitors apologizing for their behavior when visiting the museum. They claim they've encountered dreadful misfortune, gotten into accidents, and had relationship breakdowns, or even experienced death or disease in the family after visiting Robert the Doll, and these letters seek to ask his forgiveness. There are over 1,000 letters in total, and the museum keeps cataloging all of them for future references. If you're brave enough and want to visit Robert the Doll's original home, the address is 534 Eden Street in Key West. Make sure you look at the turret. You might just catch a glimpse of Robert standing near the window. Or, if you are even braver, you can also go visit the Martello Gallery Key West Art and Historical Museum at 3501 South Roosevelt Boulevard in Key West, Florida. There you can see Robert the Doll behind the glass, but make sure you follow the rules that is printed near his glass, or you might be the unlucky person to take home the curse of Robert the Doll. Now that we've come to the end of this wonderful Halloween story, I want to put it out there as well. I always say at the end of each and every video that we as a society need to come together and love one another. There should be no reason for racial hate, no reason for robbery, no reason for murder, no reason for violence, nothing like that, because we need to stand up as a whole and love one another. The world is in a horrible place right now. You see things that is happening on the news. I know you see things that are happening all over the world. Unless we make that change, we're never going to do any better. I want everyone out there to love one another. Be a good being, even if it's just a hug, a kiss, a handshake, or a simple nod. You will let a person know that they are loved and they are valuable. So until next time, my good beings, have a wonderful night and happy Halloween.
Do you believe in that voodoo?
I think that's some
Yeah.
weird.
A superstition. If you really believe your arm is going to fall off, in some cases it will do that.